Locked on Clemson is back, and Clemson is back in the ACC championship game, even though we lost to the South Carolina Gamecocks.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I know it's been a while, but we are back. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can follow us over on Twitter at I am John Bivens. Hey, I know it's been a long hiatus. Just want to explain real quickly what all was happening. If you are in Western North Carolina or upstate South Carolina in that area, you've heard of Hurricane Helene. Honestly, if you're anywhere in America, you have. I myself and my family, like so many people, were hit by the hurricane, causing some pretty big damage. We lost our house. That's why we're in a little temporary spot while our house is getting fixed. And because of that, we have been about 2 months outside of our home, but we are okay. We appreciate so many people being generous, but because of that, we've had to take a hiatus in the break. Clemson is looking great, looking really. I say that after a loss, but Clemson's looking good this year, with some hiccups, with some problems. We'll talk about there more. But long story short, we're back. We can't wait to start making daily episodes once again. We appreciate y'all being patient with us. Make sure you share this with your friends, letting them know that the Locked On Clemson podcast is officially back to being your daily podcast for Locked On Clemson. Today is December 2nd, and man, we got a good show for you as we jump back into it. We're going to walk through the South Carolina game on Saturday, talking about how turnovers happened. Missed opportunities happen. Lenore Sellers' unstoppable performance, and our massive offensive imbalance, just missing their opportunities. We are grateful for all our sponsors that make this show possible. We wouldn't be able to possible without each of them sponsoring these amazing things. For a full list of our sponsors, make sure you check out our episode notes below. Turnovers and missed opportunities were the main reason that Clemson fell to the Gamecocks. Clemson faced on Saturday, if you didn't watch it, hey, we had our yearly game against the South Carolina Gamecocks, our big rivalry game. We end the season with them every single year. Past couple of years, it's been a back and forth show. We win, they win, we win, they win, we win, they win. This year, they got the best of us. I headed into this game pretty nervous. Clemson felt like, honestly, past couple games, they just felt like, I know we haven't got a chance to talk, but I promise we're going to make up for all the missed time we've had. Past couple games, it's felt like some promising moments, but there's also been like, I don't feel great. The Pittsburgh game, I didn't feel great. We won because Cade Klubnik had an outstanding play. We didn't deserve to win that game. So with that, I came in. This South Carolina game or team is one of the hottest teams in the nation right now. And so I came in pretty nervous. I don't know if y'all felt the same. Some friends of ours that are Clemson fans over on Twitter or over on X that we follow and chat with, they were nervous as well. We went in pretty nervous, but most of the game was back and forth. Slow start at the beginning and pretty much a slow offensive game for the majority of it. But I remember early in the fourth quarter, after we picked them off in the red zone, we were up by 7, had the ball. I had this like weird sense of peace. I was like, the game's over. I feel confident. I feel good. I feel like we have this one. That was a bad feeling that came out to obviously not be true. We ended up squandering the game away and lost 17-14. Clemson had every chance to win this game. We didn't deserve it. I'm not mad that we lost. I mean, I'm ticked off we lost, but it's one of those situations where the only people we can blame is ourselves. Yes, South Carolina has a great offense. We held them to 14 points. Yes, South Carolina has a great quarterback who had played really well. We'll get to that in a little bit. We held them to 14 points. Clemson had every chance to win this. We forced punt 5 times. We forced 3 different turnovers, 2 lost fumbles that were actual fumbles, unlike one of Clemson's fumble. Our defense was really good this game. Yeah, there was some problems. Again, we'll get to that at the last segment. But the biggest reason we lost is we weren't able to capitalize on turnovers and we didn't seize the opportunities that we had. Well, to begin, let's look at the second drive of the game. Monday quarterback, I know before we get in, Monday quarterback being I have all the answers on Monday because it's 2 days prior and I know the results, obviously gives a little answer here. But when you're in a rivalry game and it's early on, the biggest thing is you got to put points on the board, right? The biggest thing is you've got to score points. And if you can score points first without having the ball first, huge, right? It creates this momentum. They even talked about on the interim that Dabo Swinney and Coach Beamer at South Carolina talked about how in rivalry games, one of the most important things is how it starts. When you start a rivalry game ahead, it creates a momentum for this game. So South Carolina's first drive, they drove the ball. They looked really good. Caused a turnover. Clemson's first drive, not so hot. I think we went for a 3 and out. We might have ended up getting one first down. I don't remember exactly, but we didn't score. We punted it. For South Carolina point. Our second drive looked good. We started in promising, started making some drives, and we got it down in field goal range, and it was 4th and short. Early on, you're seeing both teams can move the ball, but also both defenses have came to play. You got to put points on the board. I know we have Phil Maffa. I know we have Cade Klubnik. I know we have players that can make plays. Take 3 points to put on the board so you can start the game early. I know it's a big energy shift, big momentum shift. If we pick up a 4th down, right, go for it on 4th down, we pick up a first down, that's huge. And so they went for it, and they didn't get it. What happened is our offense continued to be a little under the weather for a little bit. I don't understand why we didn't take that opportunity. We had a prime opportunity to take advantage of being able to score first, but Dabo decided to play really aggressive, and it turned out to bite us in the butt. We ended up losing this game 17-14. Simple math. If we kick that field goal, it's now a 17-17 game going into overtime, right? That it changes the whole dynamic. It changes the whole outlook, the entire format of the game. Who knows what kind of mindset, what kind of energy, what kind of momentum that would have brought to our offense, being able to go back our next possession and be like, look, we have a lead now. Let's play and let's finish on this lead. That even though it's a field goal, even though they didn't get the end zone, if you put points on the board, it creates this shift in an offensive player's mind where that right there, I identify that as a huge play. Them stopping us on 4th down, us not kicking a field goal, I think that's a huge reason we lost that game because it didn't allow us to have all that momentum that we could have had on the second possession of the game scoring first. Another thing that I identify as a big reason we lost is like we talked about, we forced 3 turnovers this game. We took the ball 3 times. 2 of them were fumbles that they lost. 1, we picked them off in the red zone. Just like basketball, points off turnover is a big thing. I know in basketball it's a little bit more. That's a stat that's tracked a little bit more heavily with points off of turnovers, being able to score when you force a turnover. Football, it's just a big deal. When you can force a team off the field without having them pump, when you can force a team to truly create this system where you can force them to have a turnover and then score from it, that's huge. We forced 3 turnovers and we didn't score 1 time. If our defense is going to force turnovers, our offense has to capitalize. We can't expect our defense to do all the work and win games for us. Our offense has to jump in. Look, we're facing a top 20 team. Holding them to 17 points, that's a big win. That's a really, really big win. We've got to be able to put more than 14 points up on the board. Not capitalizing on turnovers, not making the right decision to put points on the board, that's why we lost. But not only did we not take advantage of their mistakes, and that hurt us, our own mistakes hurt us as well. And so let's get into that in just a second.
Jarvis Davis here for FanDuel. You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So guess what? I'm about to tell you a little bit more. We got a little something just for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders. It doesn't matter because guess what? With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Yes, every regular season out-of-market game. That is so dope. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And make sure you download America's #1 sportsbook.
Offensive inconsistency and dumb mistakes definitely defined Clemson's defeat, but our own mistakes played a huge role. While we should have capitalized on turnovers, yes. Another big reason that Clemson lost this game was that it came down to our offense, and it wasn't a pretty day for our offense. On paper, they didn't look terrible, right? On paper, we put up over 400 yards. We won the turnover battle, forcing 3 turnovers, and then having 2 of our own, one of which wasn't a turnover. We'll probably talk about that later this week, but that was an ugly call. We are pretty disciplined. We only had 3 penalties, resulting in 15 yards of penalties. That's not bad. You can't be upset with those numbers. Cade Klubnik, though, had honestly, I would mark it down as a pretty disappointing day. When you look at his numbers overall, he finished 24 for 36, 280 yards, 0 touchdowns, but he did throw that 1 pick, and man, was it a costly pick. We'll get in that in a second. Rushing down, he had 10 carries for 62 yards. His longest was 18. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, and one of those was that 18-yard touchdown run, so that was nice. But he didn't find the end zone passing the ball. Rushing the ball with our other rushers, our running backs, honestly pretty disappointing. Phil Maffa, 20 yards, 66 yards. Jay Haynes, 2 carries for 11 yards. Receiving the balls, they spread it out pretty consistently. Antonio Williams, of course, was our leading receiver, 8 receptions for 99 yards. Bryant Wesco, 5 receptions, 67 yards. TJ Moore, 6, 65. Jake Brenning still 3 for 35, and then Phil Maffa had 2 for 14. But getting that to Cade Klubnik, I would mark it down as a disappointing day. And the problem here is twofold with Cade. Number one, while yes, Cade had 280 yards of passing, that's good, right? He connected on multiple long balls. I mean, I think in the first quarter, we had 3 different receivers that caught 3 yards or 3 passes 20 yards down the field. With all that, you can't find the end zone. With all Cade's success, there was plenty of opportunities with a weak secondary, plenty of opportunities with cornerbacks that were giving coverage, one-on-one coverage on the outside, wide receivers that are making plays, but yet Cade did not put one ball in the end zone that was caught for a touchdown. Honestly, didn't take too many chances of passes thrown in the end zone either. That's a problem. Yes, you're playing against one of the best teams in the nation. I think they were 15th. Yes, you're playing against a team that's on a hot streak. South Carolina's got a good defense, but they don't have one of the best. And you can't find the end zone one time with a passing touchdown. That's a problem. You can't put up more than 14 points. That's a problem. And while that's problem number 1, right? We said it was twofold. Problem 1, you can't find the end zone with a passing touchdown. Number 2 is this. While his numbers don't look bad, yes, 24 for 36, 280 yards. Here's the problem. When it comes down to yards per pass, how many yards we received per pass attempt. Cade Klubnik finished with 7.8 yards per attempt. That's not terrible. That's a decent number. You're almost getting 8 yards per attempt. The problem is this. Sellers, the quarterback for South Carolina, is a great quarterback. He's known for his legs. With his arm, he's got a decent arm, but he's not known for his arm strength. He finished nowhere near the same amount. He had 164 passing yards. He didn't take as many, though. And when you look at his yards per attempt, it was the exact same. They both finished 7.8 yards per attempt. When you compare Cade Klubnik to Sellers, you can tell it wasn't a great day because he played pretty much the exact same game as Sellers. Only difference is Cade took more passes, and because of that, he got more yards. That really identifies how it wasn't that good a day. And look, Cade has made leaps and bounds, and he's grown this year for sure. You look at Cade this year compared to last year, night and day difference, 100%. You're not going to hear me saying that he looks the same. I hate that we haven't been able to put episodes throughout the season because I wish we could have broke down each game as Cade's growth has gone. I really wish we could, but now let's talk about it. Cade's decision-making has grown. Cade has looked better this year with pocket presence, with ability to make throws, making the simple throws, but he hasn't looked perfect. And his decision-making, a prime example is the offensive drive at the end of this last offensive drive we had at the end of this South Carolina game shows that he still has a lot more room to grow. Look, he's played better, but he's not perfect. That last drive, if you didn't see it, we're down by 3 points with a little bit over a minute to go when we get the ball. We have 2 timeouts left. Everyone knows you march the field, you make a pass, either get out of bounds or you go, sprint and run no huddle. And they did it. They executed that perfectly. We got inside their 30-yard line with 30 seconds to go, I believe. Ran it perfect. Got out of bounds. We had 19 seconds on the clock. We have 0 timeouts left, or we have 1 timeout left. Either 1 or 0, one of the two. Everyone knows the situation. The situation is 19 seconds. You have 1 or 2 pass attempts into the end zone or out of bounds. That's it. That's all you do. You don't run it. You don't throw a short pass in the middle. You don't do anything dumb like that. You throw it to the end zone to try to score, or you throw it away to keep a field goal option alive so you can kick a field goal and tie the game going to overtime. That's what you do. Dabo Swinney came out and he told Cade, hey, this play, you either throw it in the end zone or you throw it away. There is no waiting. There is no throwing in the middle of the field. There is none of that. End zone, throw away. That's it. Keep the field goal alive. So Cade scrambles out, gets some pressure in the pocket. He runs to his right, and he makes a really hard throw. He throws it across his body towards the middle of the field to a running back. Hard play with bad results. He ended up throwing behind the running back. Phil Maffa tipped it, and one of the captains for the South Carolina defense dove, made a great interception, sealed the loss for Clemson. That's on Cade. Yes, was it a hard play? Yes, but that hard play ended up with terrible results. And because of that, we lost the game. He was told by his coach, end zone or throw it away. That's the game situation. Everyone knows that. That's what you do in high school. That's what you do. 19 seconds on the clock. You take 1 or 2 shots, but you keep the field goal alive to tie it up and go in overtime. You don't try to get a 5-yard play and have to sprint and spike it down. No, that's dumb. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of threat. Cade's poor decision-making, not doing what his coaches said, bad hard throw, ended up to a bad throw, ended up to terrible results, which was the loss of the game. Overall, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's only one play. Look throughout the game. There was moments throughout the game where Cade's mistakes, where his lack of being where he needs to be. Look, here's where he was last year. Here's where he is this year. Here's where he needs to be. Has there been growth? Yes. Has it been growth where he needs to be? Not yet. Earlier on in the fourth quarter, 3rd down, had an easy slant, ran a great slant route. Honestly, it was a great call by Garrett Riley. Wide receiver was wide open for the 1st down. Cade threw a bullet. I mean, an absolute bullet. Didn't need it. He could have just lobbed it in there. Wide receiver catch it, goes down for a 1st down. Instead, it started long, throws a bullet over his head. Terrible throw, cost us the punt. There was so many times this game, and honestly, there's been times just like these throughout this whole season so far where Cade's bad decision or bad execution caused us and led us to lose. Am I saying he's been terrible? No, he's made growth. He's gotten better. But overall, his mistakes, overall, his ability to not take advantage of turnovers, to making dumb mistakes, we should have beat South Carolina. We didn't deserve to. We had the talent to. We had the ability to. But we didn't because of dumb mistakes and not having our offense utilize and take advantage of our great defense. Like we said, holding in the 17 points, that's a win. You leave as a defensive unit, yeah, there's some holes. There's some problems that we need to fix. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But overall, defense had a good day. Our offense caused a lot of problems. But that's enough on our offense. Let's take a quick break, and afterwards, we're going to dive in truly what were some of the problems that we saw from this defense. I don't know about y'all, but there's nothing like going to a live college football game. Hearing the fans, hearing the chants, hearing the fight songs, it creates an environment that nothing beats it. And the best place to go to get those tickets is GameTime. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. What it does is it filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Clemson has a lot of games coming up soon. Make sure you get to at least one game this season by going to GameTime, type in Clemson, and pick the date you want to go to. It has some great features like all-in pricing, where it shows you the exact price without any surprise fees at checkout. It also gives you a panoramic view of your seats before you buy them, so you know exactly what to expect when you see it. It has the lowest price guarantee, or it credits you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app now. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the GameTime app now today. What time is it? It's game time. While our defense for the most part looked good, Sellers showed us that a mobile quarterback might be the key to defeating our great defense. Throughout college football history, There's been some quarterbacks come in that just seems unfair. There's been quarterbacks that seem when they play somebody, it's video game-esque, right? Like it's unfair. People aren't able to stop them between their legs, their run. They've just got too much ability, too much talent where it's not fair. Andrew Luck was like this. Johnny Manziel was like this. Trevor Lawrence was like this. And now this is what Sellers looked like on Saturday. His passing game wasn't the best, like we talked about, under 200 yards. Didn't have a lot of attempts. Didn't have a great passing game. Threw an interception. His rushing game was ridiculous. I can't count how many times we had plenty of defenders or defensive linemen with clear opportunities for a sack or clear opportunities for a tackle for a loss. And he'd pull out some shifty moves and break a tackle and break another tackle and just run right by everybody for a big play. I mean, on their first possession of the game, first drive of the game, South Carolina has the ball. There's an opportunity where we had 4 defensive linemen, and some of them are great defensive linemen. We had Peter Woods back there. 4 defensive linemen with hands-on Sellers way behind the line of scrimmage, way out behind the pocket. Yeah, he breaks the tackle, busts out for a 20-yard run. His numbers on the day, like we talked about, passing game wasn't that great. When you look at his rushing game, though, completely different. Passing, he had 164 yards. Rushing, he had 166 yards on only 16 carries. That includes losing yards for sacks. That includes taking out the opportunities, taking out the moments. The 3 sacks that we had, those loss of yards, you take that away, and he's over 170, probably over 180. He had a great game on only 16 carries. He averaged well over 10 yards per carry, had 2 touchdowns. Also, 38 yards was his longest, but he had 2 or 3 that were over 20 yards. He had a great game, and he put up video game numbers, like just his ability to break sacks. It's like you span the juke button. He has a 99 juke overall, 99 break tackle, and a 95 speed. He looked video game-like. It was crazy good. The point of this, why are we highlighting all this? Because one, that's why, I mean, yes, we lost because he made that great run where he broke a tackle and then after it should have been a sack and then made a cornerback look silly as he dove into the end zone. I mean, he just froze a couple defenders on that last play. He scored because of that. They scored late in the game to take a lead by 3 with 3 minutes left. But what we might have learned about this Clemson defense is as good as they are, it might have showed other teams that the best way to beat Clemson is to have a really good mobile quarterback. I mean, obviously, if you get their defense playing well against our offense, that's going to win. But on the defensive side, mobile quarterbacks might be the way to beat us. So far this year, Sellers is by far the best mobile quarterback we faced. He's not better than Carson Beck. That's not what I'm saying. Carson Beck is by far a better quarterback. But in the mobile game, Carson Beck's good. Sellers is so much better. I think Seller helped us identify some areas we have to work on. If we want to beat SMU on Saturday, if we do that and we make it into the college playoffs, we're going to have other challenges to face in the playoffs with mobile quarterbacks. Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, they all have great quarterbacks that can run the ball. And if I'm them and I have to play Clemson in the playoffs, you better know I'm implementing a heavy part of the game, is a heavy part of the scheme, a heavy part of the option of what we're going to be running is going to be our quarterback's legs are going to be involved. That doesn't even include Notre Dame will probably be in, or who already has a quarterback with Riley Leonard. They already beat us, right? Riley Leonard already beat us last year with Duke, and his legs were a huge part of that victory. Georgia beat us this year, and Carson Beck didn't even need to run that much. He had a couple good runs, but they identified it didn't look like QB or Clemson didn't run a lot of QB spies, which is one of the simplest ways to defend against a mobile quarterback. You put one person just spying on him, that their job is to make sure he doesn't get out of reach from him. He didn't run a lot of that. So if I'm anybody going to face Clemson, you better believe I'm getting my quarterback's legs into the game, making sure that that's a part of it. So that's a big deal. Overall, it was a fun rivalry week. Clemson did not deserve to win, or they didn't deserve to win. I know there was a couple ugly calls, like that fumble call where we tried to get fancy and Cade handed it off to Phil. It was going to flip it back to wide receiver. It was going to flip it back to Cade to throw it deep. Ended up being a fumble because Cade tripped and then Phil Maffa fumbled it. They called it down, and then we ran a play, finished that play. Then they were like, oh, no, that play don't count. We're reviewing the last one, which you can't do that. That's literally against the rules. And then the review obviously showed his leg was down when he fumbled it, but they still called it a fumble, overturned it, gave South Carolina the ball. That was a load of junk, right? Absolute load of junk. But even with that bad call, we didn't deserve to win. We gave up 17 points and only could find the end zone twice. We didn't deserve to win. We didn't win. But thank you, Syracuse. Go Big Orange. Beat Miami, so we have a second chance. Our season should be over. We should be preparing for some bowl game that doesn't matter. We got a favor. We've got to utilize it. And so this week, we're going to continue talking about episodes like that. But overall, we lost this game. It was a fun rivalry week. It's going to be a great championship week. Let's hope Tigers can pull off the upset, get that dub, and be members of the inaugural 12-team playoff this year. So it's going to be fun. This week, we're going to talk a lot more about it. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are back every day, so make sure you're joining us every day for a new episode. For your second listen every day, go check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono, Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real. They bring you the truth, and they talk about all your favorite ACC teams and where they stand within the conference. Find the Locked On ACC show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast at. Later this week, we're going to preview the SMU game as well as looking on to our basketball team. Chase Hunter is off to a great start this year. But let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Reach out to us over on X at I am John Bivens or LO_Clemson. You can also email us over there, whichever way works for you. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have some conversations with you on the socials. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, or if you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button over there. That way, every day we can be your first listen here on Locked On Clemson. Make sure to check out other podcasts from Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. We can't wait to see you in tomorrow's episode, but until then, let's bring it back. You keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and as always, what do? Go Tigers.